In this demo, we're going to cover a few new items in Excel. Some of the things we're going to cover are rotating text. So you can see we have the text going diagonally in these cells up here. We're going to also make use of getting Excel to help us when there is a pattern that is pretty obvious. So we're just going to start out by writing a few of the months and then get Excel to figure out and add the rest of the months on its own. The big one that we're going to look at is using the if function to perform a logical test. So you can see down here an example of that is we have in this ice cream shop, the person will get a bonus of $5,000, but only if the sales revenue is $65,000 or more. So in months that the sales revenue was more than $65,000, you can see that this person did get the bonus, but in months that it was less than $65,000, they got no bonus. So we're going to use the if function to figure out that logical test. We're also going to use spark lines, so these mini charts at the end of a row of data, showing you kind of what the trend is. So these don't totally replace another chart, but they're helpful when you're going through a lot of data. So we are going to get started with our chart here. Now to start off, I've added some of the basic information already. If you're following along with this, you can just pause and type in all of this content. But this is all the content that we're going to manually type in. The rest of it is going to be built using functions in Excel. So we have our titles, we have a few months of the year, we still have to add the rest of those, and then we have the revenue for each month. We have the list of expenses. We have another little box down here that's going to look at some different scenarios and some different information here. So this is the margin, this is how much of a percentage the ice cream shop makes. This is the bonus amount, so the person will receive a bonus if their sales are more than $65,000. How much of a percentage goes to commissions, rental, marketing, and equipment repair and maintenance in this projection. So this is this projection is being used to help plan for future months of this ice cream shop. So we have the basic information here. Just to save us some time, I already have that up and running. When we're all done, we're going to have a nice looking set right here like this. And to get there, first thing that we're going to do is we're going to use Excel to figure out the rest of the months here. So we have January, February, March. There's an obvious pattern here. We can get Excel to save us a little bit of time by finishing that pattern for us. So you can highlight these three cells and then just click and drag from the fill handle, and automatically it figures out what you're trying to do next. Next up, we're going to do something new. We're going to turn or rotate the text a little bit in these cells. So if we look at what we're trying to actually make it look like in the end, all of these all the way to column or row I3, we want to rotate that a little bit. So if I highlight all of this and then in the alignment area click on orientation and then format cell alignment, you can click and drag to whatever angle you want, and we'll turn this to 45 degrees, and from here you can press enter or press OK, and you can see that we have tilted the information in those headings. So we're going to continue and fill out all of the information down here. So we have some information here and some here, and that should give us all that we need to populate the rest of this. For cost of goods sold, and this is a projection, so this is kind of our best guess for the ice cream shop moving forward. For the cost of goods sold, we're anticipating $55,000 in January, and of that, 78.75 will be profit. But we don't really care about profit in this case. We want to see what the cost is. So to figure out cost, we're going to start this by saying equals the revenue, and then in brackets 1 minus the margin, and that will give us 1 minus the margin. That will give us our kind of cost percentage, and multiply that by this cell up here. That should give us an estimation of our cost. So this looks good right now, but we're going to run into a problem if we don't properly reference the cells, and I'll show you what I mean. So I'm going to press enter, even though this is not totally correct just yet. Whoops, and I made another mistake. So it should be B4 times 1 minus cell B19. And even though this is correct right now, we're going to run into a problem when we try to copy this formula over. So see what I mean here? There's an issue where it's still bringing the formula over. So rather than B4, now it's saying C4, which is correct, but 1 minus C19. We don't want 1 minus C19. We still want to refer back to that original cell. So I'm going to delete these, and we have to use absolute references here. So we don't want the B19 to change at all when we copy the formula over. You can do that by pressing F4 on the keyboard, and you'll see that a $ has been added in front of the B and in front of the 19, or you could just type in that $. So now if I press enter, I still have the same value there, and when I drag this over to copy it, B19 stays in the formula, even though D4, or in this case E4 or F4, is added to the formula. So we can do some totals here. We've done totals before, so I'm just going to auto sum here and here, and we've calculated the totals for this 6-month period. To calculate gross margin, we're simply just going to say equals revenue minus cost, and that gives us our gross margin, and we'll copy that all the way over. Next, we're going to start to work through the expenses area, and even though we don't have any information in the different months, we do have our expected revenue for those months and some assumptions down here of what the margin will be, if there are any bonuses, and at what stage they will start up, commission, site rental, marketing, and equipment repair. So these are percentages, these two are dollar amounts, and this is a percentage. So commission is just based on this number times revenue. So it's a pretty simple, we're going to take revenue times commission, but remember we have to add those cell references. So add the $, or press F4 to make that an absolute reference. Otherwise it won't copy over the proper way. Site rental will do the same thing. Equals revenue times the estimated site rental cost, and I'll press F4. Marketing, same thing. Make sure that's an absolute reference again. Equipment repair, same thing. And these ones are pretty straightforward. The bonus structure, we're going to use an if statement to figure that out, and we're going to kind of look at what an if statement is and how the different pieces are made up of that. So to figure out what we're trying to do in this if statement, what we're saying here is that the sales revenue for a bonus to be enacted is $65,000. So if the sales revenue is more than $65,000, this person gets a bonus. If they don't, if it's less, then they don't get a bonus. And the bonus amount is $5,000. So on months that the revenue is more than $65,000, we should see a $5,000 bonus, and on months that it's less than $65,000, we should see 0 bonus. And to look a little bit deeper into what an if statement is, or what it does and kind of how it's set up, we can look at it here. So this is how an if statement is set up. Once you start to type if, you'll see this little hint menu down here. And remember that the area that is bolded, that's kind of the area that you're working in at that point. And as you move through, the different section will become bold as you're typing it out. So we have if, bracket, a logical test, value of true, value of false. So a logical test is just a true or false, or a yes or no question. In our case, it's, is the revenue more than $65,000? There's a yes or no answer to that question, or a true or false answer to that question. If it is more than $65,000, so value of true, we want a $5,000 bonus to be added to that cell. If it's not more than $65,000, so if the answer to this is false, then we want a 0 being added to that cell. And we can look at it in this case. So if we say that anything more than a 50% is a pass, anything less than 50% is a fail. So this is the number that we're going to reference, and then this is the way we're setting up this if statement. So we have if, bracket, cell D9 is greater than 50, because 50 or greater is a pass. Then we write pass. If it's not, so if that statement turns out to be false, then we write fail. So here, if I have a 40, it goes to fail. If I have 51, pass. 100, pass. It doesn't just have to be numbers though, they can be dates as well. So we have a due date for an assignment coming up, let's say, of June 15th, and today's date is June 1st. So we're all good. But if the due date of the assignment was, let's say, May 15th, then we can say that it's past due. So we've set this up a similar way. If B4 is greater than B13, so that's a true or false statement there. We're just using two different cells to refer to that. If today's date is greater than the due date, then it's past due. If that statement is false, if today's date is not greater than the due date, then we're okay. And to show something a little bit more complicated, we have letter grades and percent. So here we can say if we get a 75, then it's a B. If we get a 99, then it's an A. If we get a 35, it's an F. We're not going to go too far into this, but I just wanted to show that you can nest different if statements together. So we have if the cell is equal to or greater than 81, then it's an A. Equal to or greater than 70, it's a B. Equal to or greater than 60, it's a C. Equal to or greater than 50, it's a D. And if it doesn't meet any of those conditions, then it would have to be an F. But we're going to stick with pretty regular if statements as we go through this one. So moving back to our sheet here, we're going to figure out if the person gets a bonus in this month or not. So we'll start out by typing equals and then the word if. And when I double click on that if, see we have three kind of hints here. The logical test is first, and then the value of true, and the value of false. So what are we trying to test, or what's the true or false statement that we're looking for? Is this cell greater than $65,000? So we can reference that cell. If B4 is greater than or equal to this threshold for our bonus, so B21, and I'm going to type a comma next, and watch what happens. See right now logical test is bolded. When I type the comma, it moves over to value if true. So if this is true, what do we want to happen? We want it to equal $5,000 or equal that cell. If not, we just want to put a 0 in there. So you can use cell references or you can use a typed amount. And then I'll close the bracket and I'm almost okay to press enter. But now we have to make sure that these two cells are absolute references. This first cell doesn't have to be an absolute reference or shouldn't be an absolute reference, because when we copy and paste everything over, we want it to test against the revenue of that month. But we want to compare it always to these amounts here. So I'll press F4 to make sure that we have the proper referencing there and the proper referencing there. Now, if I press enter, we have a 0 because in January, $55,000 is the revenue, and that's not more than $65,000. If I drag over, again, less than $65,000. And if I drag all the way across, now in these months, March, April, May, June, there is a $5,000 bonus in each one of those months because we had more than $65,000 in revenue. We've already calculated commission, site rental, marketing equipment for January, so we can just copy these over, and assuming we've done everything right, we should get the numbers across there. Then for total expenses, we're just going to auto sum everything in that month and drag that over. We can auto sum everything across here, so just a quick check. 5,000 plus 5,000 plus 5,000 plus 5,000 is 20,000, so I think everything looks good there. Next, we'll calculate operating income, which is just the gross margin minus total expenses. So here we can say equals this cell minus this cell, and then when we copy everything across, the cells reference in the right areas. One thing we should do now is just tab this over. So because these are all part of the same category of expenses, we can just use the increased indent just to visually move things over a little bit. It just makes it kind of easier to see what's going on. So we have all of our numbers in here now. The next thing that we can do is we'll add a chart. So if we go over to insert, and it's a spark line that we want to add, we can add a line or a column. If we add a column here, it's asking me where the location range is, and that's the cell that we want the spark line to show up in. And the data range can be the first 6 months. So we don't want to add the total in here because the total is adding all of these months up, and we just want those individual months in this case. So we can see that at a really quick glance, it looks like the 4th month was the best month. And if we look at this, the 4th month was 90,000. So yeah, the 4th month was the best month. But at a quick glance, these charts are really helpful. We'll do the same thing down here, or we could just Control C, Control V, and paste it, and then drag that down, and should be able to Control V to paste again. Maybe not. I'll copy this and paste into operating income. So these can be really helpful for just getting a quick glance as to kind of what the overall trends are. Next, we'll add some formatting just to clean up the look a little bit. So if we look at kind of the end goal, we'll change the background color, we'll change the font color, and the size next. So I'm going to highlight all of those cells and change the background color. Then I'm going to make both of these a title, but I'll make this one a little bit smaller. Change the font color of both of them, and I'm going to make this first one bold. Okay. Up next, if we go to the finished document, we'll start with this one. So the background color is the same and the text is white now. So background color, white text, and I'll make that bold. We're going to do the same kind of style for all of this and a similar style down here. So one way that you can keep styles consistent without having to constantly kind of click the same buttons over and over is by using the format painter. So this is the format that we want to kind of copy, and we want to paste it across operating income. So with that cell selected, I can just click format painter and then come across here, and it'll give me the proper format or the similar format. I'll do the same thing, click format painter again, and then I'll do it down here, but I'm not going to make those bold, and I will make the what if assumptions italicized and underlined. We're going to add the totals, add a different style to the totals. So down here, I'm going to use the totals style. And next we can start to change the format of the numbers. So we have a few items down here that are percentages. So margin is a percentage. I'm going to click that and hold down the control key and make the selection around, hold this. Hold down the control key to select these non-adjacent cells, and I'm going to add the percent style, and I'm going to add 2 percentage points, or sorry, 2 decimal places. The rest of this, so here, here, and here are all money. So I'm going to click the accounting format, and now we have $sign and 2 decimal places at the end. See if there's anything else that I'm going to do here. Oh, I'll change the background or the font color of the months or of the titles. Make it blue and bold. And then the only other thing I'm going to do is add today's date. So we could manually enter today's date, but we can also use either today, which will give us the date format, or we can use now, which will give us the date and time. If we went for a longer date format, we can add the time as well. I'm going to make the font color white, and now we have gone through this entire exercise. So we've learned a little bit about how to change the orientation of text, how to spin it. We've learned the if statement, which is a pretty big item, and we've used sparklines for the charts on the side.